I remember being on the phone with a friend in the early 2000s, Y2K, the days of low-rise denim, chip nail polish, and lip gloss. I was telling her that I had cramps and that the over-the-counter painkillers that I'd taken still weren't working. Just take more, she said. Ever the good girl, I told her, but the label says I have to wait 2 more hours. And she said, so? It hadn't occurred to me that I could just take more, and she was right. More worked. That began a series of quick fixes for my period, though the pain increased over the years. I grew from a teenager concerned about 50-cent butter rolls to a woman concerned about bills and whatever. By now, I was regularly using more than the max dosage, in addition to increasingly higher absorbency products and whatever birth control doctors told me I should try. By this point, I learned that I had fibroids, non-cancerous tumors that grow in the uterus. Secretly, it felt like my ultimate prognosis was, you're a woman, just deal with it. So I did. I started to view my body as a machine that just needed to be patched together enough to keep going. But what were those patches? An ultra tampon, an overnight pad, menstrual underwear, menstrual diapers, compression shorts, often all at once. And if I was sleeping, a towel beneath me as a final line of defense. And even then, I still had to set multiple alarms throughout the night so that I could get up and change. I felt like I was at war with my body and like I was being told to just live life like this. What life? I would guzzle painkillers and cradle a thick pouch of boiling water, searing the skin on my stomach so that I could focus less on the agony going on inside of it. I needed someone to believe that this was as bad as I said this was and help me. Eventually, my machine, my body, hit its breaking point, and I ended up in the ER. On the outside, I looked okay, so I sat there for a couple of hours until it was my turn. It wasn't until my lab work came back that things shifted. The doctor walked in, mouth hanging, and side note, it never feels great when the doctor looks scared. He told me, you shouldn't even be walking. He said my blood levels were what he normally sees in shooting or stabbing victims, and that I was at risk of heart failure. He said I needed blood transfusions, and I said, I didn't come here for that. Which was an ineloquent way of saying, doctor, that doesn't sound like a quick fix, and it wasn't. That set off a saga of medical treatments and procedures. What once upon a time was probably a pea-sized tumor had now multiplied into a uterus nearing its second trimester, which explained the protruding belly and the blood and the pain. They would have to be removed. But first, I needed to build up enough blood to survive surgery, and that was a problem. After those transfusions, I ended up back in the hospital, having lost most of what I'd received. The hospital was hesitant to give me more transfusions because there was a national blood shortage, and clearly my body was wasting a precious resource. I felt defective. I could feel myself slowly bleeding to death. But I held on and started to undergo an alternative to transfusions, and I was nearing surgical eligibility. But then I learned that the complexity of my fibroids made me ineligible for various procedures. I felt like I had made it to the end of my rope and I'd tied a knot, but I wasn't sure if I could hang on much longer. Thankfully, my childhood best friend suggested that we keep in touch by routinely discussing episodes of Love is Blind. And it was the perfect idea. That reality show gave me an escape from my own real-life drama, and she gave me something to look forward to. I also stayed with family that helped me to find a radiologist and a surgeon who felt comfortable that they could help with my specific case. So, can you guess what was always my favorite part of surgery? Anesthesia. I'd breathe peacefully into the promise of sedation and hope to wake up to a better reality. And eventually I did. But one thing lingered. Even though I had been freed from the torture of fibroids, I still felt a grudge against my body, even though it was now healing. So I decided to address this turmoil with a not-so-quick fix, meditation. And meditation is definitely not as easy as anesthesia. But I practiced every morning and every night. So one morning, I'm meditating and I'm focusing on gratitude. I'm fibroid-free, my periods are normal, my blood levels are increasing, but there's this very ungratitude-y voice that says, but I have this tiny scar that will be there forever, and I spent a decade suffering, and some people didn't believe my pain, and then I remember I'm supposed to be focusing on gratitude. So I take a deep breath, and I clear my mind. I notice my heartbeat, and it just clicks. My heart had been at risk of failure, and yet it pounded on nonetheless. I had been so focused on quick fixes, and I had been conditioned to suffer in silence. But my body had never been at war with me. I instantly realized that my body had been the main thing fighting for me. And in that moment, I made peace. Thank you.